Hi, this is John Rowell for the Rowell Report. Today is Tuesday, October 14th, 2025, and I'm back for another video again on the Tomahawk missiles. You may have seen the article in Financial Times or heard about the possible transfer of Tomahawk missiles into the territory of Ukraine. Currently, they're talking about 20 to 50 Tomahawk missiles. So in this video, I'd like to discuss this possibility. And the first point I need to make is one that I've made in other videos, and that is that Ukraine is not capable neither of programming the missile nor of launching it. So the discussion of supplying Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine is propaganda. So you can take into account first that Ukrainska Pravda is a Ukrainian propaganda news outlet run basically by the Ukrainian KGB. So all of this information being put out is news that is, approved after a period of being revised and, looked over with a looked over every single little detail and then approved. So anyway, and Ukrainska Pravda in this article is quoting the Financial Times, which is a UK propaganda network basically run by the military industrial complex in the UK. So anyway, one propaganda network quoting another, but I think the information that's provided here is interesting. And we see here that this Ukrainska Pravda is quoting a number of 20 to 50 Tomahawk missiles being supplied to Ukraine. So anyway, basically this just means that U.S. servicemen are driving the launcher with the missiles over to the Poland-Ukraine border, driving across the border, finding some location to launch the missile, programming the missile, then launching the missile, and then driving this launcher probably back over the border into Poland or possibly Romania. So I think it's also important to remember that the Tomahawk missile needs to be sent in large quantities, because the Tomahawk missile, although it flies low to the ground, is susceptible to being shot down. It does have a technology in which it can avoid the air defense systems, and it also can go into an area and loiter. But in any case, the Russian air defense is very effective and probably would locate them and shoot them down. Now, the real big problem with the Tomahawk missile is that it can be loaded with a nuclear warhead. So when the Russians see the Tomahawk missiles coming, they may not know if this is a nuclear first strike or not, and this puts us into a very difficult spot. So anyway, I would say that possibly we're not looking at Ukraine getting these missiles within its territorial borders anytime soon, because they first need to get the missile and the launcher over to the border from either the Netherlands or from Spain. And the launcher, the Typhoon system, is a very easy to spot system, because it first has a truck which is long and flat, and it pulls a very long, what looks like a semi-trailer that then lifts up to launch the missiles. So if they're going to use that system, the Russians would be onto it pretty quickly, and they would probably be destroyed. Now, if they're going to be destroyed and there's U.S. military involved there on the ground, then that means that the U.S. military could be killed trying to launch these missiles towards Russia. So anyway, we see that President Trump is increasing are attempting to increase the pressure on Russia to sign some sort of peace deal, basically freezing the conflict in place. That is what the United States has wanted and has always wanted. And because they've now determined that the Ukrainians are not capable of winning back territory, now what they want to do is freeze the conflict in place. But the Russians aren't interested in freezing any conflict. The Russians are on the move, and the Russians are controlling the front line. So also Russia has more soldiers, has more military equipment, is pounding the Ukrainians with a huge 6 or 10 to 1 advantage in artillery, from which 80% of the casualties come from this conflict. So Russia really has no need or interest to stop the conflict, to pause it, or whatever you want to call it. Ukraine, what it's looking for is about a 2 to 3 year break so that it can rebuild its military military ranks and all the way up to the battalions. So anyway, their military has been decimated, and they're right now they're basically band-aiding their front line together to hold back the Russians, but they don't really know, or possibly they do know, how long it will be before the front lines collapse. But the important point is that the front lines will collapse eventually, because the Ukrainians are spread so thinly on the front line that eventually the cracks will show and Russia will begin to pour through some of the openings. So anyway, the idea that the United States would provide some Tomahawk missiles in low quantities, like 20 to 50, to Ukraine is also a sign of the depleting stock that the United States has available. It used some of the Tomahawk missiles in its attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. And also the United States has installed Tomahawk launchers in Japanese ships and submarines. So it needs more of these Tomahawk missiles to provide for its ever-increasing Tomahawk-capable vessels, submarines, and ground launchers. So I believe that they produced 57 this past year. I don't know if that number is anywhere between 57 and 65. In any case, if they shoot 50 off, then they'll use up a whole year's supply towards Russia. And what they will get is they will get a huge escalation from Russia if these Tomahawk missiles are used. And basically, the United States can kiss any possibility of any future peace settlement in Ukraine goodbye. So basically, this is the all or nothing card that the United States is trying to play in Ukraine. Apparently, the situation on the front lines is so deplorable and so severe that they are going out to their Hail Mary card, more Tomahawk missiles, and 20 or 50 is not going to make any difference, neither on the front lines nor in Russia. So also, once they have these Tomahawk launchers on Ukraine, then Russia will be hunting them down and destroying them, and possibly with U.S. troops in the process. So President Trump will have to explain why these U.S. servicemen died in Ukraine. And so all this could snowball for Trump. These desperate last-minute moves to try to save the Ukrainian basically totalitarian state, now that there is no democracy or freedom of speech within Ukraine. So things are starting to look more and more desperate for Ukraine. And if we go down this article, we can find some additional important information. Um, okay, so they bought 200 Tomahawks in 2022. They used 120 of them probably in Iran. So I don't know how many sites they hit in Iran, but they used 120. This is possibly for Iran. I don't know if they used them in Yemen or not. But anyway, Russia is a lot bigger than Yemen or Iran. And so if they used 120 between Yemen and Iran, then how many are they going to need for Russia to make any difference? And Russia will be waiting for them. They're probably already programming their air defense to keep a lookout and to spot these and to shoot them down once they enter the Russian territory, or possibly before they even get to Russian territory. So the total stock that the United States has is around 4,000 Tomahawk missiles. The possibility of them getting a large quantity of those is probably remote, partly because the ground launchers are few and far between. So they could have a lot of missiles, but they don't have a lot of ground launchers. So once those ground launchers go into Ukraine, Russia will be looking for them. And then once those are destroyed, then they could have hundreds of missiles, but if they don't have a launcher, they won't be launched. So anyway, I think the important thing to remember about these Tomahawk missiles is that they aren't game changers. They aren't going to bring Russia to the table. They aren't going to change the reality on the front line. But what they're going to do is they're going to escalate the conflict on the side of Russia. Russia will begin to take the gloves off a little more. And you may know that the special military operation has a lot of rules. So these rules could be rolled back if now they're going to their Hail Mary card to try to make any difference in this conflict and try to force Russia to the so-called negotiating table. So anyway, I think that this is a desperation move. It will fail, and if they go after the Russian leadership in Moscow with a few of these Tomahawk missiles, then that's basically the United States trying to assassinate President Vladimir Putin. This won't go down very well, and this could worsen very, very quickly, and this could become a very hot conflict between Russia and NATO very quickly. Now, does NATO have the planes and the missiles and the troops and the tanks and the bullets and the shells to take on Russia? I really don't think so. I think that they could have a few victories in the beginning, but in the end, Russia would do a massive call up, and they could roll through possibly all the way to Paris. Once they're into France, they could hit anywhere in England with their artillery. So anyway, this could be really bad, not only for Ukraine if they start using Tomahawk missiles. This could go really bad for several other countries. Of course, Russia doesn't have to take its troops and bring them into Western Europe to hit targets in Western Europe. Their missiles are capable of hitting just about any target of any continental European country. So, as I say, this conflict could go really hot really quickly, but more than likely, if Russia shoots them down easily, they may de-escalate to a lower point. But in any case, the use of the Tomahawk missiles is an escalation in of itself, so Russia would respond, and what kind of escalation it would provide, I don't know. But anyway, I think someone needs to get information to the White House that this is a very bad decision to make. Apparently, President Trump and Zelensky will be meeting on Friday, and they will be discussing the Tomahawk missiles. Probably discussing something like a decapitation strike. How many missiles do they need in order to hit Moscow? And of course, this would be a incredible escalation. So it's hard to say exactly where this conflict could go. But again, my point is the discussion and use of these missiles indicate that the conflict is winding down and Ukraine is in a panic state and doesn't know how to solve the situation without these escalatory missiles. So I think this is a true indication that we're getting much closer to the end of the war. And of course, the U.S. will send some of these missiles to Ukraine, delivered and operated by U.S. servicemen. So where this conflict could go from here, it's hard to say. But I think this would be a very bad decision on the part of the Trump White House, and shows that President Trump has no interest in peace, and neither in Ukraine nor in Europe. So anyway, that is my video for today on Tuesday, October 14th. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you have a comment, please leave a comment below. And please subscribe for future videos. I hope to see you again sometime soon. Take care. Bye-bye.